my name's Charlotte. We are at Skylark Vets, where we routinely treat birds and reptiles, and today we're going to talk about pre-brumation or hibernation checks in tortoises. So many of us have pet tortoises. Some of them may not have hibernated before, and there are some species, particularly the tropical ones that live in very warm climates, that absolutely should not hibernate. So the first thing to say is make sure if you're planning to hibernate or brumate your pet that it's actually supposed to brumate. The second thing is, why are we brumating them? So reptiles generally, whether you've got a tortoise, a snake, a lizard, have a period during each year where the temperature cools down naturally, and that's a reset button for their body. So it allows them just to slow down, stop their growth cycle, which is the most important thing, reset everything and start again fresh the following year. Many of us that keep pets in this country, in the sunny UK, do not really pay much attention to the weather because we're used to it, but unfortunately for our pets it's really not the right climate for them. So if we allow them to do things naturally, they'll be in brumation for far too long, so we really have to limit that time frame for them. For most tortoises, which is what we're focusing on today, that's going to be 8 to 12 weeks maximum, so no more than that. Now, there are lots of ways that you can brumate your pet, and we're going to go through those in a moment. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about is making sure that they have a checkup before they go into brumation. Generally speaking, if your pet's been ill during the year, and that can be any type of illness, so it could be that they've had a liver problem, it could be that they've had some worms, it could be that they've just had a sprain or a strain, whatever the problem is, they shouldn't brumate that year. We should keep them up through winter so that they can make a full recovery. It takes our animals a really long time to get over things, so we need to give them that summer and another summer and then another summer before we then let them sleep. Now, it depends on how you keep your pet, whether they're going to be an outdoor tortoise or an indoor tortoise in a tortoise table, or maybe free roaming in the house. However you keep it, the important thing is that when they brumate they don't get too cold, and also that they don't have any food in their stomachs. So any food that they've been taking in, when they then go into that brumation cycle and they shut everything down to basic rate of functioning in their body, the guts aren't going to receive a lot of blood, and that food is just going to sit there and ferment inside them, and it can cause some quite nasty infections, even septicemia. So we need to make sure that we're reducing the temperature gradually over a period of about 4 weeks, and that when our pets have stopped eating, we're then giving them a bath every day in nice warm water, as in hot enough that you would sit in it and be comfortable, warm water, for a good 10 to 15 minutes each time, preferably twice a day if you can, but once a day if not. And that will encourage them to just pass any remaining excreta that's in their body, so any stools that need to come out. From when they pass their stools, we need to have had a whole week where they're not producing any stools at all and they're not eating before they can go into brumation. Once you've got to that point, we then need to decide where you're going to do it. Now, you can either go for the fridge option or you can go for the box option, and we've got a handily prepared box from earlier. So if you're going to use the box option, we use a box in a box, as you can see. So this would be the box that your pet would go in, filled with some shredded paper or something similar, preferably not hay, because again it tends to go mouldy in the time that they're having their downtime, particularly if it's damp, but otherwise even so it can go mouldy, it can have storage mites, and it can be an attractant to rodents like rats and things, which could then damage a tortoise, so preferably something like shredded paper. And then you put that smaller box into a larger box, again filled with shredded paper, and that's going to form an insulation layer around your tortoise so that they don't get too cold. That box then needs to go somewhere that is away from any possible rodents. So for example, if you're going to use a garage or a conservatory, pop it up on a shelf that no pests can get to. It's important to know that during brumation, which is what reptiles do, they're not asleep like mammals who hibernate are. They're actually still awake, so they're still going to be moving around. From that point of view, it's also important that we continue to monitor their weight to make sure they're not losing too much. So we would advise getting them out once a week and weighing them. As I say, they're awake anyway, they won't mind, so just get them out, pop them on the scales. If they lose any more than 5% of their body weight, you need to wake them up with a hot bath, give them something to eat, and that's their brumation done then. They mustn't go back in, they must stay awake from that point, and just bring them in for a checkup. If you are using this setup, then I wouldn't advise putting water in the box with them, because again they're awake, but it is important that they have a source of water nearby so that air around them has some humidity. And that doesn't need to be a huge pot, it can be a tiny little ramekin like this, or you can just have a dish from the kitchen. and just change that water once a week. You can just pop it next to the box so that when you open the lid to take your tortoise out and weigh them, they're also having an air change, and then they'll get that fresh water as a humidity source in there as well. The boxes we've got are obviously quite large. If you're using smaller ones, do pop some air holes into the boxes as well that allows that air to come in and out freely. In terms of temperature, wherever you're keeping them, whether it's the fridge or the garage, and if they're in a fridge, they don't necessarily need to be in a double box, but it is better for them. We would recommend keeping the temperature around 5 degrees. Certainly don't let it go below 2, because after that point their eyes will start to freeze and they will go blind. It's also very painful. If the weather turns warm and you find that the temperature is coming up to sort of 10-15 degrees, you'll probably find that they will wake up, and again, we just have to call it good at that point. That's going to be the end of their brumation. If the weather stays cold, as I say, you need to make sure it's no longer than 8 to 12 weeks that they're staying in that state for. After that time, even if it's still cold, you need to wake them up, get them warm, get them eating, and we need to then continue to provide warm, well-lit areas for them. So if your tortoise is an outdoor tortoise, it might be worth looking into just getting a small enclosure with a heat bulb and a light bulb that they can stay in when they're up again earlier on in the year. We also recommend, before they go into brumation, if they've been outside at any time during the year, or if you're picking fresh flowers or weeds for them, that you get a stool sample from them in the weeks before they go into brumation, just for us to check that they've not got any worm eggs in there. A few worm eggs can be normal, but lots is abnormal, and again, if they've got lots of worm eggs, we wouldn't recommend going into brumation. Most tortoises cope very, very well with this, and it's very easy and simple to do. One of the ways that we can do it is to let them go in naturally and then wake them up again for Christmas, and we'll have Christmas together.